Okay, guys, today we're going to look at exaltations and debilitations viewed through the lens of this theory. In this video, we're only looking at the four main exaltations and debilitations, and here by main, I just mean starting in the cardinal directions. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, I believe I have discovered the astronomical reasoning for the rulership assignments, and if you want to have a chance to guess for yourself, then go back now to the beginning of the playlist because I'm going to jump right into it, and you're immediately going to see spoilers. So this is your last chance. Go there now. Okay, and why should you listen to me? Who am I? I'm a space nerd, if you haven't noticed my telescope. I love space. Let's go. So we're going to be looking at exaltations and debilitations of these four planets whose exaltations and debilitations fall in the cardinal directions. So in the first video, we covered how the sun is the North Pole, and if you track the movement throughout the year, it's as if it goes through a giant sunrise and sunset. Now is the moment to point out that that can be synonymous to exaltation and debilitation. Sunrise, sunset, rising and falling, exaltation, debilitation. Since Saturn is opposite the sun in the chart, it should also reflect this in real life. This is absolutely true because in the second video, we covered how Saturn becomes the South Pole. And if you didn't realize already, that means that it also experiences polar day just on the opposite schedule from the sun. Let's take a look. So now we're looking at the South Pole view, and we can see how we're still starting at the spring equinox, and it's going to go through the same process, but just backwards. This is a bit of a spoiler for my upcoming video of the redemption of Saturn, so that's why the face is there. But I just finally saw the pieces with Mars and Jupiter yesterday, so I was excited and wanted to share. So we have shown that Sun and Saturn both follow this sunrise-sunset idea. Now let's look at Mars, which is the equator. So now let's look at the side view and examine the equator. So the video still starts at the spring equinox, but this time we're halfway through its cycle. We are right at midday. So let's play the video and watch what happens to the equator. Watch how it is dipping down below and it reaches its lowest point as it reaches Cancer. So I'm comparing this to the sunset moment because it is at the extreme end of the cycle. Whereas when it starts at the spring equinox, then it is directly getting hit by the sun. So it is that energy of that noon, midday sun where it is getting the most direct sunlight. But if that's a confusing analogy, you can at least see what I mean that it is debilitated because this is the lowest point in its cycle. Let's keep playing. So now you can see that the equator is ascending higher and higher until finally it reaches its highest point at Capricorn. So this is the exaltation of Mars. This is the exaltation of the equator. This is where it is at its highest point. It's also where the sun is about to start its imaginary journey where it makes a path that passes over it, where the direct hit of noon is that spring equinox. Okay, now let's watch a sunrise sunset of the equator, where instead of going from equinox to equinox, we're going from solstice to solstice. So this time we start at winter solstice when the sun is in Capricorn. Sunrise, midday, and sunset. The rest of the cycle is the sunbeam going down, so this is the nighttime. Sunbeam going up is daytime, sunbeam going down is nighttime. So now it's time for Jupiter. Okay, so maybe you caught on to this right away, but I'm a little embarrassed how long it took me to catch on to the idea of what Jupiter was, because I knew that we were looking at these four planets, which were the cardinal directions, and the Sun and Saturn made sense. The Mars also made sense because it was the equator and it was halfway through, so you can tell just mentally by thinking about it that makes sense. But you can also tell just by thinking about it, the rest of the rulerships don't follow that same rule because it doesn't just shift with the rulerships, house by house, you know? So I knew we were looking at something else, and I knew it was probably a concept like when you're looking at the cardinal directions and it's northeast, southwest. It's not like north, northeast, northeast, east, anything like that. It's northeast, southwest. So I figured it was probably something solid like that, and it makes a lot of sense to look at these main points on the planet where it's the poles and the equator. But I was like, what is the fourth point? You know, because it's clearly not the geometric alignment like how we mapped with the chakras. That's clearly not it. So I was wondering, is it the Earth itself? Because the entire Arctic Circle is in the sun, it's Cancer, so since Jupiter is the Jivakrika, maybe it represents all of us, maybe it's the actual Earth. But I wasn't super sure on that. I was still contemplating and looking. So I was sitting there just scrubbing through the videos, like from the top view and the equator view, just staring for like 15 minutes before it finally clicked. All of a sudden I realized that if you look at the chart and the Sun and Saturn are opposites, it has to follow the same rule. So Mars and Jupiter have to be opposites in the same way. And so I was like, what is opposite of the equator? And then I was like, the other equator. So I was about to add the other equator. And then I realized that we have already had it there this whole time in the form of the ecliptic belt, because that is what it represents. So Jupiter is the ecliptic belt, which makes total sense, because what better to represent the heavens and the skies and all of the signs than Jupiter? To prevent any confusion over Jupiter changing significations, let's go ahead and address this now. So it is my belief that rulership correlates with latitude, but exaltation seems to follow some different rules. And this actually tracks with what we already knew about rulership and exaltation, because there never seemed to be a clear-cut pattern between the two. So this video is just exaltations, debilitations, and I do believe we are showing astronomically the reasoning for these 4 exaltations. I don't know about the rest of the planets, but for now, let's just get back to Jupiter. So now if you go back to the chart and look at it, you can see it's the 2 poles, the 2 equators. So now you can see it's the poles and the equators, just like it is the poles and equators in real life. So if you were looking at the equator versus the ecliptic path, the 2 points of intersection are the equinox points, and the 2 points of greatest distance are the solstice points. So here in the sign of Cancer, the ecliptic belt is exalted and the equator is debilitated, whereas once the sun passes into the winter solstice, the equator is exalted and the ecliptic belt is debilitated. Okay, so once again, we're going to keep it to just that for today, but subscribe if you want to see more of the theory as it unfolds. Take care. Bye.